Today I'm going to talk about section 4.10, which is on page 10 of your second half of your chapter 4 notes packet. And the title of this is Inverse Variation. Before I start talking about inverse variation though, I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to remind you, that we learned in the first half of chapter 4, we learned something called direct variation. And I'll just remind you, this was page 9 of the first chapter 4 note set. And here is direct variation. If you recall this page, y over x equals k, or y equals k times x, that's direct variation. So this is just remembering from a week or two ago what direct variation means, or varies directly. It means when you divide the x and y values, you always come up with the same number every time. So for example, if you see y varies directly as x, you just say y varies directly divided by directly. Y varies directly as x, and y equals 48 when x equals 4. So you have to find x. Well, remember, x is on the bottom in this case when y equals 36. So that's how you would set up direct variation. You can just cover this part up and say, let's solve 48 over 4 equals 36 over x. Well, you remember you cross multiply. 48 times x is equal to 36 times 4. Well, 36 times 4 is 144. And to solve that for x, you divide 144 by 48. So we've got 144 divided by 48. Oops. So x equals, or y equals, no, x equals 3. So in other words, 48 divided by 4 is equal to 36 divided by 3. That's direct variation. That's direct. So if you remember, the graph of direct variation is a straight line that passes through the origin, 0, 0. So that was then. Now we're going to learn about something almost the opposite of direct variation, and this is called inverse variation. So you might see it written like this, inverse variation, or you might see it written varies inversely. So the root word of variation is vary inversely. Two quantities vary inversely if their product is a constant. Instead of x or y over x, it's x times y. So you multiply the x's and y's, and you're always going to get the same number no matter what. So that's the opposite of direct variation. Direct means divide, d, directly, divide, d. They both start with a d. So direct variation is this, inverse variation is this, x times y is k. And if you wanted to solve this for y, like if you wanted to put this in your graphing calculator, you can divide both sides by x. So that is written as y equals k over x, if you want to rewrite it, like to put it in your calculator. So these examples go like this. If x varies inversely as y, that means x times y. Varies inversely means multiply. So when you have x times y, they say x is 12 when y is 8. So x is 12 when y is 8. X times y is k. Well, what's k? 12 times 8. 12 times 8 is 96. So now we have to find x when y is equal to 10. So since k is 96, you just say x times y is always equal to 96 in this problem. And then they say find x when y equals 10. X times 10 is equal to 96. So divide both sides by 10. So x is equal to 96 over 10 is 9.6. So that would be your answer to this problem. That varies inversely. And then this other question, if x varies inversely as y, x times y is equal to some k value, and we find k with the given information. X is 9 when y is 4. Well, what is k? 9 times 4 is 36. So now we have to find y when x is 12. So now we say, oh, no matter what, x times y is always equal to the same number, which is 36 in this question. So find y when x is 12. 12 times what is equal to 36? We'll divide both sides by 12. Y is equal to 36 over 12, 3. So in other words, 9 times 4 equals 3 times 12. 9 times 4 equals 12 times 3, right? And up here, 12 times 8 is equal to, find x, 9.6 times 10. And if you wanted to check it, you could. 12 times 8 is 96. 9.6 times 10 is 96. And this is 36, and this is 36. So you'll always get the k value when you multiply x and y. On this next section of page 10, I'm going to have you do this in class. We'll skip this because I want you to do these in color, so I'll give you the colored pencils. We'll do xy equals 12 in one color, and xy equals, this should say -8. Sorry for that box. So xy equals -8. We'll do that in another color, and then we'll talk about what the asymptotes are in this question, and we'll draw those in a third color. So we'll just we'll do this one in class. Oh, I didn't show you that. That's xy equals -8. So now what we have is we have several questions where we're going to practice inverse variation problems. This is how you'll see these questions presented to you. So I'm going to go through some of the odd questions here. So number 1, if x varies inversely as y, that means x times y is equal to k, and x is 12 when y is 3. What is x when y equals 9? Well, x is 12 when y is 3. So 12 times 3 is equal to, find x when y is 9. 12 times 3 equals x times 9. Well, 12 times 3 is 36. Divide both sides by 9. So this says 36 equals 9x. 36 over 9, 4 equals x. So that would be option C, which is 4. Next one, y varies inversely as x, so that means multiply. X is 15 and y is 10, so 15 times 10, multiply them together, and you'll get 6 times y. 15 times 10 is 150. I'll put that over here. Equals 6y. Divide both sides by 6, and 150 divided by 6 is 25. So that would be, oops, I said I would do only the odd problems. I guess I just did an even problem. Oh well. All right, maybe we'll do number 3 in class tomorrow. Number 4, this one's a little bit different because this says y varies inversely as x squared, not just plain old x. So that means y times x squared is equal to some value of k. Well, y equals 8, x equals 12, so 8 times 12 squared is k. Well, let's see, 8 times 12 squared is 1152, says my calculator. Now we have to find y when x is 6. So y times x squared. Remember, multiply y times x squared. Well, what is x? X is 6. So I'll replace that x with a 6. So 6 squared is 36. Divide both sides by 36. And 1152 divided by 36 will be equal to 32. Y equals 32. So that would be letter C. Number 5, we'll do this one together. This is a little tiny bit different also. This says y varies inversely as the square root of x. So y times the square root of x is always equal to some value k. Well, what does y equal? 8. When x is 12, 8 times the square root of 12 is equal to k. Well, what is y when x is equal to 6? So we'll put the square root of 6 in here. Y times x equals y times x. All right, to solve this, we're going to divide both sides by the square root of 6. So y is 8 square root of 12 over the square root of 6. Well, if you remember, you can make that into one square root. So this is 8 times the square root of 12 over 6. Well, 12 over 6 is just 2, so this is 8 square root of 2. Option B. Number 7. Which one of these equations shows that P varies inversely with Q? Well, remember, when you multiply the two numbers together, you're always going to get a constant. So in letter A, multiply those two letters together, those two variables together, and you're going to get a constant. So it looks like it's letter A. This is not right because this is not multiplying the P times Q. This is addition. And this would be, if you divide both sides by Q, this would be P divided by Q equals 10. And that's direct variation, not inverse. This is inverse, so this would be letter A. Number 8 we'll do in class tomorrow. I'll save that for later. Okay, this one is a little bit more reading. The frequency of a radio wave is inversely proportional. When you see inversely proportional, it's the same thing as varies inversely. So this is the frequency of a radio wave. The frequency varies inversely to the wavelength. So frequency and wavelength vary inversely, so you have to multiply them together. So the wavelength is 250 meters long. Well, you can use letters like F and W if you want for frequency and wavelength. Frequency times the wavelength is always equal to the same number. This wave is 250 meters long, so that's the wavelength. And then the frequency is about 1200. So multiply those two together and you get the K value. Now we have to find the length of a wave when the frequency is 800. So 800 times the wavelength, W. So I'm just going to take my calculator out and do 1200 times 250 and divide both sides by 800. 1200 times 250 divided by 800. And it looks like 375 would be the answer. So that would be letter C. 10 I'll skip. Let's go to 11. Actually, I'm not going to do number 11. 12 we'll do in class. Let's do 13 together. A and B vary inversely. So that means A times B is always equal to the same number. Well, A is 8. B is -3. Multiply them together. Now we have to figure out what A is when B is -12. So you're going to multiply those two together and divide by -12 and you'll get A. 8 times -3 is -24. -24 over -12 is 2. So there would be your answer to number 13, 2. Now skip number 14. And then x varies inversely as y. That means multiply x times y together. Now if y is doubled, well, if y is doubled, that means y becomes 2y. So what happens to x? Well, x times y equals k. That's what varies inversely means. So if you have x times y always equaling the same number and you double y, that would become x times 2y equals k. Well, it's not x times 2y equals k. This has got to be x times y equals k. So how do we get rid of that 2? Well, if we multiply this by a half, 1/2 times x times 2 times y, that will give us a half times 2 is 1. So x times y would be equal to k. So if you double y, you'd have to cut x in half in order for this to still be equal to the same number. So if it varies inversely, it means if you double one, you have to divide the other one by 2. Or if you multiply y times 3, you'd have to divide this by 3. Or if you multiply this by 10, you'd have to divide this by 10. Whatever happens to the one, the opposite happens to the other. So you can still maintain that x times y is equal to k value. So this would be option C. Let's just go through a few more questions on the back here. Now there's some more practice here with inverse variation and direct variation. So remember they're the opposite. Remember inverse variation is x, y equals k. That's what we've been doing for the past 15 minutes. And direct variation is x divided by y equals k. They're two opposite things. So which one of these are direct or inverse or neither? Okay, if you remember y equals 3x, well, if you divide both sides by x, to get rid of that x, you have y over x is equal to 3. So that forms the y over x equals k. That is the form of direct variation. That's number 1. Let's skip 2 and we'll go to number 3. Now, this is x plus y. If this were x times y, it would be inverse. If it was x divided by y, it would be direct. But this is plus, so this is neither. Remember, inverse is multiply, direct is divide. And we'll skip number 4 for right now. These next questions down here, they're telling us that x and y vary inversely. So that means x times y is always equal to the same number k, no matter what. So we have to, our job is to, using the given values, they give us 2 values, then we have to find y, that's our job, when x equals 4. So this says x times y is always equal to the same number. So when x is 2 and y is 4, that's equal to, well, when x is equal to 4, what is y equal to? Well, 2 times 4 is 8. Divide both sides by 4. You got 2 is equal to y. So there's your first answer. I'm going to skip number 6 and go to 7. X times y is always equal to the same number, which is negative 4 times 9 is equal to, we have to find out y when x is equal to 4. So if you divide both sides by 4, negative 4 over 4 is negative 1, so negative 9 is equal to y. Number 9, x times y is always equal to the same number. When x equals 16 and y is 1/4, we have to find y when x equals 4. Well, 16 times 1/4 is a fourth of 16, which is just 4, equals 4y. Divide both sides by 4. 4 over 4 is 1, so y equals 1. I'm going to skip number 10, go on to 11. So these problems here, we have to show if it's direct, or is it inverse, or is it neither, just like the problems up above. So if it's direct variation, x divided by y is always equal to the same number. If it's inverse variation, x times y is always equal to the same number. So we'll have to go and figure that out from the table of values. So let's figure out what x times y is. And if they're not all the same, then we'll see if x divided by y will always give us the same number. So we'll just add a third and a fourth column onto this. Well, x times y is 3 times 12. 3 times 12 is 36. 8 times 32 is 256. 44 times 11 is 484, and 0.5 times 2 is 1. So x times y, they are all different. Since they're all different, this is not inverse variation. Now let's see what x divided by y is. Well, 3 divided by 12, 3 divided by 12 is the same thing as 1/4, or 0.25, if you put that in your calculator. 3/12. The next one is 8/32. Oh, 8/32 is also a fourth. Let's see what 11/44 is, the next line down. Oh, that's all the same. And then the last one, 0.5 divided by 2. Oh, you can see they're all 0.25, or 1/4. So they're all the same. So these guys are the same values. So since x over y is always the same number, this one is direct. I'm going to skip number 12. Let's go right on to 13. So we'll make a column of x times y. See what that is? We'll make a column of x over y. See what that is? Well, x times y, 3 times 1 is 3. 6 times a half is a half of 6. 10 times 0.3. 10 times 0.3, you just move the decimal place over 1. And 12 times 0.5. Let's see what 12 times 0.25 is. Oh, that's equal to 3 also. So we don't even have to go any further. Since x times y is all the same, xy equals k, this must be inverse variation. So that's the answer to 13. And that's it for Chapter 4. See you tomorrow.